This flip is about scoring and why vulnerability matters. It's all about knowing your colours. Lots of bridge players talk about the different types of vulnerability in terms of the traffic light colours. Normally, of course, there are 3 traffic light colours, but I'm using a little bit of artistic license here and I'm putting in 4. There's green, white, amber and red. The green traffic light refers to when you're not vulnerable and the opponents are. This is go. Everybody loves this kind of vulnerability. The white traffic light refers to when you're not vulnerable and also the opponents are not vulnerable. The amber one is when you're vulnerable and the opponents are vulnerable. And the red one is when you're vulnerable and the opponents aren't vulnerable. Think of this as stop, the danger vulnerability. To know why these traffic light situations are so important, you need to have a good feel for the basic scoring. The game bonus you receive if you're vulnerable is 500 points. So 4 hearts and 4 spades, you actually get 620 points if you're vulnerable. 3 no trumps, you get 600. And if you bid and make 5 clubs or 5 diamonds, you get 600. So when you're making a game vulnerable, it's a really nice thing. When you're not vulnerable, on the other hand, if you bid and make 4 hearts or 4 spades, you only get 420 points because the game bonus is now 300. Bid and make 3 no trumps, you get 400. And to bid and make 5 clubs or 5 diamonds, you get 400. So it's still nice to make game, but it's not as nice. Sometimes when you think it's likely the opponents are going to make game, it's worth sacrificing. And when I say sacrificing, what I mean is bidding a contract that you know is almost certainly going to go down. As long as the amount you go down is for fewer points than the amount the opponents will make, then this can be a brilliant idea. But you'll need to bear in mind that the opponents are not going to like you stealing their contract and are going to double your contract. So you're going to go down and you're going to go down doubled. Therefore, the first thing that you do when you're considering making a sacrifice is doing the basic maths. You'll look at how much they're going to make when they make their game contract and you'll figure out how much you're likely to go down. You'll need to check the vulnerability to have a proper understanding of both of these things. If you're not vulnerable, if you go down 1 trick doubled, it's 100 points. 2 tricks doubled is 300 points. And 3 tricks doubled is 500 points. If you're vulnerable and you go down doubled, it's altogether a different story. Going down 1 doubled is 200, 2 doubled is 500, and 3 doubled is 800. So you need to check your vulnerability, how much you think that you might go down, against their vulnerability and how much you think that they might make. Sacrifice when you think that you're going to go down for fewer points than they're going to make. Look at this hand here. The opponents are going to make 4 hearts, but probably not 5. Your side will go down 3 and 5 clubs. Whether or not it's worth bidding 5 clubs will depend on the vulnerability. If you're not vulnerable and you go down 3 doubled, that's 500 points. Which is great if they're making 620 points because they're vulnerable, but wouldn't be great if they were only making 420 points because they weren't vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, going down 3 doubled is 800 points and nobody wants that. So bidding 5 clubs here is only going to work if you are not vulnerable and they are. But it won't work if they're not vulnerable and would only be making 420. The vulnerability here is green. You're not vulnerable and they are. They're going to miss out on 620 points if you bid 5 clubs and go off 3 doubled. They'll only score 500 points when they would have otherwise scored 620 points. In summary, when you're thinking about sacrificing, do the maths. Work out how much they'll make compared with how much you'll go down if you lose the contract. And check those traffic lights, check that vulnerability to work out whether it will be good for your side.
Excellent. Bridge talk.